How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Ran When Parked. I know that I haven't been posting with any sort of regularity at all. We do have some videos planned coming up. I'm sure everyone here saw the last video, which I posted just recently, kind of rapid fired these two on the F-150 parts truck. But the reality is those two things were spread apart by a good bit of time. And the reason I haven't been posting a lot is just because of a lot of life changes. Obviously, this channel is just a hobby. I just kind of like doing it. It's kind of fun. It doesn't really represent any sort of real income or anything. It's small, obviously. I would love for it to grow. I'd love to get a bigger audience. I think we have good content. So definitely, do everything you can to support it, because the more views we get, the more subscriptions we get, the more videos I can make, and the more common I can make them. But the reasons why are a few why I've been a little bit busy. One, I did start a new job, so I moved from my old role to a new role, a little bit closer to home. The reason I did that is because my wife, who I may have mentioned was pregnant, she has given birth to a baby girl. So I got a 4-month-old baby girl, which is the best thing that's ever happened. She's amazing. And then lastly, because I'm a glutton for punishment and have no idea what the limit to my workload is, I bought a company also. Which I couldn't really talk about for legal reasons for quite a while, but I bought a machine shop. As I think everyone that's been a follower or subscriber of the channel for a while has known, I have like a mini machine shop set up in the garage here. I have the manual lathe, I have a 3-axis CNC knee mill, and then I have the Haas VF0 vertical machining center. And that was all brought in here. Well, not so much the knee mill and the lathe. I've had those for like 10 years. The Haas was brought in here in the effort to start my own machine shop. Right after I got it, I essentially, through like a friend of a friend, found an entire running facility with a great customer base. So I bought that. I've owned that for 10 months now. So that's kind of been what's been going on. That's why we haven't made too many videos, but I have been making progress. So now that that's out of the way, let me show you what I've been doing, because I have been busy. I have been working on the Crewcab, and we're going to be doing some exciting stuff today. So I'm going to keep the videos coming. I'm going to try to get back on like a steady schedule of doing videos, but it's been tough recently. Having a newborn is kind of a whole new thing for me, and changing the job, I had to focus on that, and the company's been tough to set up. So we got a lot going on. I definitely want to keep doing YouTube videos. Please like, comment, subscribe, show it to your friends. Let's watch them. Like, the more support we get, like I said before, the more I can do this. I'd love to turn it into something bigger than what it is right now. So let's keep that moving. For today, we're going to be working on the Crewcab. Let's talk about that. So anyone who's been watching the channel for a while knows that this is my 76 Ford F250 dent side crew cab. Very rare truck, F26 code, Highboy. Awesome truck. I've had it for not even a year, 8 months, 9 months, something like that. I don't know. Anyway, it is on the factory frame. In a video not that long ago, I think I had it all on video. I don't even remember now what I made videos about and what I didn't. So we're just going to cover some things here. I ended up sandblasting like half the frame, pour 15'd it, coated it. There was no rust repair on the frame. It's, excuse me, actually in mint condition. Put the cab on it, redid the whole bottom of the cab, and pour 15'd it also. I know I have videos on all that stuff, so we're not going to talk about it. Then I put the Super Duty ball joint Dana 60 in this thing, 373 gear axle, with the Battleborn brakes bracketry for the coils, for the radius arms. And for the power steering, which had to get really custom. Think I made videos on all that. Obviously, I sandblasted and pour 15 the whole front of the frame at that point. Also, 2K, like satin black, real deal paint, 2-part paint that is, on top of the pour 15. So the front end is really, really, really nice. It's on roller wheels, which are not what we're going to use, but they are rollers because the bolt pattern changed from the old 8-lug to the new 8-lug, so I just got these on Facebook Marketplace. Steering is all more or less set up. I had to make a new steering rod. That's all done, nice, ready to go, more or less. It needs a little bit of work, but not really, just adjustment. And then I know you guys saw, we'll go out this way. I know you guys saw, because everyone's watching every video, right? That we had the 2012 F-150 parts truck over here. I think I made a video, well, I know I made a video where we just got it running, and like I showed you guys that. That thing is more or less stripped now. I did take the whole interior out of it and stuff, minus the center console, which we still need. But yeah, it's all stripped. Some parts inside it that we're going to keep, but that's about it. And then the thing I know you guys haven't seen is that the whole back of the truck is now done. So I took that Sterling 10.5, stripped it. It is under there. It has new leaf spring brackets and things like that. This is the Battleborn setup for Raptor suspension. So the front is Super Duty with 5.4 gas springs, so it should be pretty light. The rear, these are 2020 Raptor Leafs with drop shackles and things because it's all really long travel. Really, really cool setup. This is awesome. I also sandblasted and pour 15 the whole frame. I had one tiny little rust repair to do behind this bracket. That was done. Also painted it with 2K satin black. It's beautiful. Then I made a couple of cross members here from scratch and mounted a Bronco 2 tank. So there's a brand new Bronco 2 gas tank, 1984, I think. So it's like a 24-gallon tank, which should be good with the Coyote and stuff. It uses factory Bronco 2 straps here. So that came out really nice. So the whole frame is done. The whole frame is sandblasted, pour 15, done with satin black, ready to go. And so is the bottom of the truck. So the cab I don't think has to come off. I also took the Coyote, the 6R80, and the transfer case out of the parts truck. So it's just sitting here. Now, this thing's sitting here. This thing is sitting here with all the suspension done. I think you guys can put 2 and 2 together and figure out that today we are putting the Coyote in the crew cab. That's right. I don't know that we're going to finish it because we're going to need some parts and things like that. But I do have the stuff I need to build motor mounts. So we are going to roll that thing over here. We are going to roll that thing into here. And we are going to drop that thing into that thing and start looking at motor mounts. Very exciting. Definitely a huge milestone. And yeah, it's going to be nice to have it in there, that's for sure. Other thing I did was rip the whole AC out. I decided this is an factory AC cab. This is actually a 79 cab, if no one remembers, on a 76 frame. But all the VINs match the 76. I bought a new cab. The old one was just too far gone. So it was an AC cab. I ripped all that out. We're going to put all vintage air, brand new stuff in it. So that's all gone. Also, I wasn't sure it would fit with the Coyote because the factory Ford AC from 1979 is like the biggest AC unit you've ever seen in your entire life. So we're going to get moving. Let's put this Coyote in here and see where we're at, I guess. Okay, so got the motor in position. Got the truck rolled back in, got it it's going in there. It was already really sketchy. I had to strap it up to the main beam in the garage to get it up over the front of the frame because this thing doesn't want to go much higher because it's a little janky. That's okay. Next thing we have to do is zip these motor mounts off because I don't want to try to do it in there because I have some fancy motor mount plates right here that we're going to be welding up with tabs to make like a bushing style mount. So we got all that stuff. I'm going to pop those off of there. I'd love to take the exhaust manifolds off too because I think they're really going to get in the way, but I am strapped around them because Coyotes don't have a really good place to pick them up from because of the plastic valve covers. So you can buy like lift hooks, but I didn't really want to do that. So I just strapped it to the manifolds and put the packing blankets in to protect the valve covers, and that seemed to do just fine. But because of that, we can't take those off yet. And even if when we do, it's going to be so brutal because the studs look terrible. So we're probably going to snap them off, have to drill them, blah, blah, blah. Let's get the motor mounts off, and then we can slide this thing down in here. So good progress. The thing I thought was going to be a problem, which was the manifold, not a problem. Went right past the steering box. Well, actually, I should say the thing I thought was going to be a problem, the steering box was not a problem, although the alternator is now getting close. I want to go back more. We have, what is that? I don't know, 8 inches between the valve cover and the firewall. I definitely want to go back more, so that is not going to be a problem. What is the problem now, I think most people are probably aware, Coyotes are very wide, like the widest freaking things ever. So we have our exhaust manifold hitting right there, which really stinks. And then we have our starter solenoid hitting right there. So there's no going down anymore. At least not with manifolds in this thing. So I think what we're going to have to do probably is jack up the back of the trans, because I have a lot of angle here. Get rid of that strap and then swing this thing back and then see what our heights actually look like. We might have to remove some of this stuff to get down below the frame rail. Certainly I'm not going to run stock manifolds. We are going to put like shorty headers on this thing or something. So I'm not really worried about that big old manifold fitting. It's not going to be on there. But again, we are strapped to it. So maybe I cut it like right here. Just remove it. That would help me a whole lot. That would get us down in there. I don't know. We're going to figure out something. But for starters, we're going to jack up the transmission and get this strap out, because our next problem is going to be we can't go back any further because we're almost up against the frame with the hoist. I did not have the foresight to extend the beam out. That's okay, because since we have the rear of the trans strapped up, you can see the chain here going backwards. So this engine's probably going to swing 6 inches that way anyway. So I'm going to pull it back up and out a little bit, jack up the back of the trans, get rid of that strap. It's going to swing out. We're going to drop back in, and then we're going to see where we're at. All right, we got her in. So what we're going to do here is start with the good, then we'll cover the bad, then we're going to go back to the maybe good. I don't know. We're going to see. So it's in. Exhaust, all the room in the world. You could probably run any exhaust you want, with the exception of that piece of cross member down there that I left, because this frame was missing a cross member, and I will fix that later, but it's not in the way anyway. Other side, exhaust. It's tighter. I was going to say same deal. Not quite. It is tighter. We're going to have to see what sort of like shorty exhaust manifolds that the market has to offer. Are we sitting way over to the left in this frame? We are very much to the left. That's for sure. Left being passenger side. Probably have to bump her over a little bit. We do have some space between the steering box and the alternator, about 1 inch. So we don't have much to play with, but we do have some. We'll probably bump her over a little bit. No big deal. Height-wise, pretty good. Way below the hood. More than enough to fit a Magnuson supercharger on top, or a Whipple, that is, for these things, which is the go-forward plan in the future. As far as the trans, I probably couldn't be happier with how well the 6R80 and transfer case fit under here. I see... no problems whatsoever, actually. Let's look inside. I think the factory tunnel is going to fit no problem. Actually, this is like really, really nice. It's like perfectly up to the level of the factory tunnel. We'll probably have to push these vents and things a little bit out of the way, maybe reroute them like ever so slightly. But all the wiring runs nice. Everything is good. Trans is mint. No modifications required to the floor. How close are we to the firewall? Not very. I mean, I can fit my whole hand in back there anywhere. Probably I can take these, I think they're cam phasers out or something, the sensors in the back. One of them's broken anyway, so we got to change it. And that's important because we want to be able to get at everything without taking the engine out of this stupid thing. And we can. I might even bring it forward a little bit more because I have nothing to lose. I mean, the thing is almost mid-engine. Look at how far back it is compared to axle center line, right? 6 of the 8 cylinders are behind the axle center line. We don't need the room in the front. The radiator mounts all the way up here. So we got approximately 16 3/4 miles between the radiator and the engine. So fans and things are not going to be a problem. Steering box clears by a mile. Now the bad news. This thing has a lot of angle on it, huh? Like it is way angled down in the back. Trans can't come up anymore. So obviously, those of you out in the YouTube verse are thinking, Sean, you're an idiot, drop the engine. Well, Coyotes have this funky little oil filter housing, and that thing ain't going any lower. It's not hitting the cross member. For those of you wondering if the engine is just sitting on that right now, it's not. It's like very close though. So we're not going lower in the front. In fact, we need to come up, really. I am not notching that cross member. So one could say, well, remote oil filter, and that would solve that problem. These coolant lines aren't going to be an issue. We could drop it another 2 inches before those interfere. Nothing else is even close to being a problem. But there is one more variable here that I think we got to get out of the way. I don't know if you can tell from here, probably not, but this whole truck is sitting way low in the back. And that'll happen if you do Super Duty suspension in the front and Raptor suspension in the back with like factory Raptor blocks. Like, I don't know, you got to start somewhere. And I knew it was sitting really low in the back. Maybe you can tell from there. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. Trust me when I say it's sitting multiple inches low in the back. I will bring it up, obviously, but I wanted to put an engine in it and see where it sat and everything. But I'm thinking that it might be wise for me to jack the back up and put it on jack stands so this thing's pretty level, and then see what the angle looks like. And if you're thinking, why would that matter? Well, if I jack the back up 2 inches, I can bring the back of the trans up 2 inches. I could bring the engine up maybe half an inch, back of the trans up 2 inches. Our angle is probably going to look a lot better. That oil filter is probably going to have plenty of clearance. And then life will be good. We might get a little closer to the firewall because of the, the trigonometry going on there, but we could always pull it forward. We have a lot of room to pull forward. So I think that's what we're going to do now. But to do that, because this thing's barely in the garage, I have to pull the engine back and the truck back in little steps to get this thing further in here so I can get the rear end in the air and on jack stands safely and not out in the driveway. So that's what we're going to do. Probably not going to time lapse it because it's going to be boring. I will show you the results when I have this thing relatively level. All right, guys, so we are very, very close. It's a whole lot better. I took out the angle finder and it's at like 6 degrees tilted backwards. You really want it to be at like 3 to 4. And I have the truck level now. I got it up on jack stands. How do I know it's level? Well, I got a level on the drip rail that says it's level. So the truck is good. The transmission is jacked up all the way into the floor cross member, so I cannot go any higher. And the front of the engine has the absolute minimal amount of clearance at the oil filter housing. You can see through there, so clearance is clearance, I guess, right? And we still have 6 degrees of angle. So we got to either come up in the back or down in the front. So what are my options? Notch the floor, cut the fin off the transmission, come up. I don't know, I can get like an inch, inch and a half. I lowered the trans an inch, inch and a half, and it only went from 6 degrees to 8 degrees, which means we go from 6 to 4. That's like the maximum angle I'd be comfortable with. I'd rather be at like 3. Now the front, I'm not notching that cross member. That's not happening. So then, I don't know, an oil filter relocation and do it remote. I don't know. I'm going to think on that. And then I'm going to come back and tell you what I'm going to do. But for right now, I'm going to take a break and ponder the meaning of life and how the hell we're going to fix this. So we are back after thinking about this a little bit. I tried a couple things. I tried removing the oil filter and seeing if like one of those relocation adapters would fit. I did some research to see if I can fit a Mustang oil filter housing with the truck alternator because I don't want to change all the front accessories on this thing. And then I was just kind of sitting here thinking about it. This is why there's so much mess here, oil and all sorts of stuff. And I realized that most of my problem isn't the oil filter. It's the oil cooler, which is a liquid to liquid, like coolant to oil cooler. Oh man, spilling stuff all over the floor. Well, that's great. Anyway, so I yanked that thing off of there. You can buy a little short stud that converts it to get rid of it. And then now we got, you can see it way down in there, the adapter. Now I can fit a relocation adapter. A couple places make them, Moroso, Canton, a few others. Improved. And I can put a remote oil filter wherever I want. So with that, I dropped the thing down. We have a couple interference problems, the exhaust here, but we're going to go to shorty headers. Same with the other side. The alternator is really, really close to the steering box, but it's actually just the plastic cover. It's not hitting anything else. Also, this alternator is completely frozen, which is probably the problem we had when it was running. If you remember, it was ticking. Anyway, now we got our angle finder on the crank. I don't know if you can see that. 4 degrees, 4.05. That's the best I can get. We have very little space between the transfer case and the floor, but clearance is clearance. If I have to notch it out a tiny little bit, I will. I can also grind a little bit out of that fin on the top of the transfer case. Everything else clears. We have good clearance up the back of the firewall. You can get a hand back there, replace the cam sensors, whatever you got to do. Our angles are nice. I'm happy. Before I weld up motor mounts, I am going to have to get the adapters for that, which I will do, and make sure that that all fits in there. Also, we're going to probably remove this plastic boot and make sure we can get the alternator in there. Might even have to drop this thing a little bit more. But I can't take the exhaust manifolds off until I get motor mounts done, like I talked to you guys about, because we are strapped around them. I could cut them off here, but, you know, whatever. I don't really want to do that because worst case scenario, I could use the factory manifold here, like weld a V-band on it or something. If shorty, like block hugger headers don't work, and I could do the same thing on this side. So as of right now, the factory manifolds would work. So I'd like to retain that situation. Otherwise, we got her, guys. It's nice and low too. Look how low that thing is in there. Looks like I have way more room on this side, but I don't know. Maybe it's twisted in there a little bit. I gotta double check. Anyway, feeling pretty good, guys. Looks good. Feels good. I love it. Also, I didn't mention, but it's pretty centered between the shock towers, so we're in a good spot. I guess that's going to be it for right now. I'm going to have to weld up some motor mounts in there. Before I do the motor mounts, I want to make sure the oil filter situation is right. So let's take a break. I'll get that stuff in. I'll be back, and we'll get this thing mounted up. Also, we'll probably fabricate a trans cross member in this video. Get this thing just like done and in there and done. So stick with me. Okay, so we're back. A couple days later, I ended up getting a Canton adapter here. So this will allow you to do a remote oil filter. It has 2 NPT fittings out that side of it, and then it just attaches in the back there, just like I said I was going to do, and it uses a Mustang 22mm adapter that came on cars where it weren't optioned with the oil cooler. So that works. And then I messed with this engine position for quite a while, cut more of the exhaust manifold off here, which is a pain in the butt, but it was getting in the way. And I finally got something that is acceptable. It is pretty level sideways in the car. It's about 3/8, actually less than that. Let's call it 3/16 offset to the passenger side. And that is because that alternator is going to get in the way on the driver's side. I am going to have to go to a more conventional U-joint here instead of the rag joint for the steering because it hits the alternator, but I think a U-joint is going to clear with miles. I had to take this bolt out. It will hit the alternator there, and I'm going to have to convert it to like a milled down custom nut that's a little narrower. But this thing is now in here square. It's straight. We have plenty of room up against the firewall, which is nice. You can get a hand back there, no problem. Probably get the sensors out and things, so that's good. So we're going to start working on motor mounts. Also, our angle here, pretty good. I measured it before. I think it was around 4 degrees. A little bit less even. That is 3.7 degrees. I checked the pinion. It's more like 5 degrees, which gives me some room to drop the back of the trans down because I do have it right up into the floor right now. So I can lower that down and kind of match that to the pinion angle. And remember, this thing is sitting on its own weight, so that's right. But that's all just tacked together back there, so I could move it a little bit down or up if I need to match the pinion angle. But with trucks, you kind of have to consider the fact that when you're under throttle, it's going to wrap a little bit too. So being a little shallow in the rear wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But anyway, the next thing we're going to do is I am going to start cutting out some 1/4-inch plates because we are going to put them on the frame right back there, and we're going to use these mounts for the coil buckets on the back side, and then we're going to weld a piece of DOM between, and I'm going to use the engine mount kit I bought. So let's chop those up, get them bolted in, and then we'll move forward. Okay, so there's our 2 plates, freshly drilled out on the mill. One of them didn't quite fit, so I had to make one hole oversized. The other one's perfect. I already test fit them on the car. And also, here's the DOM tubing that's going to make up our engine mount. It's going to come from the frame plate here to the plate on the engine. It's going to have this piece of DOM inserted into it and welded together. Bushings, it'll go into tabs on the frame. That'll be good. I thought I would try with a hole saw to go through this DOM. So normal hole saw tool here in the arbor. Kind of like the tubing notchers you see, but that wasn't going to happen. So I'm just going to mill out the notch, I guess, with a normal carbide end mill. Get it close, I'll grind it out a little more, and then I'm going to tack weld these into those pieces. Then I will cut the DOM to length to go from the frame to the engine mount, and then we can get them tack welded in there. I have a bunch of it here, so that's easy to do. So I'll go ahead and mill those out right there. And then on the other end, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but down in there, you can kind of see it. Behind the exhaust manifold, there's already steel motor mount plates. There you go. You can see it really well from the bottom. And they are bolted up, so we can just weld right to those. So let's get moving on the mill. So we got the motor in the right spot now. We got the plates bolted up to the frame. There's one. There is the other, if you can see that. I know the sun is kind of in the way. Next thing we're going to do is start looking at cutting the DOM to go from the frame right there to the engine on that steel plate. There will be tabs that come off the engine side. The DOM will weld to this, and then it will bolt to there. So that's how that's going to work. Going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt, I'm sure, but let's get moving. So we got our notches done, and I did these manually on the mill, and they came out pretty good, if I may say so myself. So we got these bars stripped down. That goes there. We center them. That's not centered at all, but I'll measure. And then we're just going to tack weld these together, and then they're going to look like this. Both ends just quickly tacked. I did do like kind of, I guess, heavy duty tacks if you're talking tack welds, because I do want it to be able to hold the motor. I just don't want it to be so welded together that you could just never cut it apart again. And I put these on both ends. It's kind of looking like a link bar, but it's not. I got to cut it like right here anyway. So I figured just for expediency, I'll weld one on each end and then cut them both to length. So now we have to get under the truck, and we got to measure up for these. And this is where it's going to get tricky, because we're going to have a compound angle on the frame side that we're going to have to hit like right on, because I don't want to weld up big gaps. Obviously, I want it to be tight. So we got to get under there. We're probably going to tack the tabs on for these on the engine side once we get close, and then we will cut the compound angle, and we should be off to the races getting this thing tacked in here and get the motor hanging on mounts. So let's get moving. So there it is, guys. We got them cut to length, and I just put like a rough angle on it just from what I saw, and they fit pretty well. I already got under there and fit them up. So what I did was I put the bushings in, I bolted the tabs on, and now we're going to fit these up under the frame, and we're going to tack weld these tabs to the motor, and then swing this thing up into position, and we can tack weld it to the plate, and then everything comes out, gets fully welded, yada yada yada. Probably, if it fits well, before I tack weld this end, I will weld all the way around here just to give it some more strength in that area. But yeah, let's get under there and tack weld the tabs on. Here's the other side. One's a little bit shorter for whatever reason. The motor does sit like a 1/16 of an inch closer to the passenger side, but that's not that. I think it's just the shape of the frame. So let's get under there and tack them in. I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so we got this thing in its final resting place. We just double checked all our measurements to make sure it's hanging right. Finish welded all of this stuff, looking good. Also welded the bracket, the tabs to the plates. Already bolted this side in. You can't really see it. Oh yeah, you can, it's back there. All I have to do is now get under there and weld it to the plate on the frame. This one I got to get under there and bolt back to the motor and then do the exact same thing. So let's get underneath this thing and wrap up the motor mounts once and for all. Alright guys, so the Coyote has landed. She's mounted in. Mounts are down there. You still can hardly see them, but they are down there. I ended up pulling the motor up a little bit and took the mounts out and welded them all the way around, so they are all good to go. This side you can see a whole lot better down there. So yeah, came out great. It fits like a glove. Got clearance around everything. There is one problem, and that is that this side came down a little more than I thought, and the AC compressor fitting just barely tags the frame there. If that AC compressor stays, I can grind that away a little bit and it'll be fine. But with the vintage air setup, I don't know if that AC compressor is even going to stay. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, but no big deal. Steering shaft has plenty of clearance, even with this big OEM rag joint. I was going to go down to a normal U joint, but the rag joint will work. Yeah, can't ask for much more. Good clearance against the firewall here. You can't really see, but you know, you can stick your fingers back behind. There's at least 3/4 of an inch of clearance. Tranny's good. Yep. Ended up pulling it out of the shop, cleaned up, got rid of the hoist. The jack is not under the trans, but I do have a ratchet strap on it for now, so it's just being kind of held up in there. So I guess now it's time to move to the trans and build a trans mount for the back of it. And then we'll have this driveline in. So I guess let's move on. Let's wrap this thing up and get a trans mount going. Okay, so trans mount's going to be anything but easy. There's not a lot of room in here. And then we got our radius arm mounts bolted to the frame right here. So the frame is doing a lot of work right in this spot already. I'm not overly excited to attach another thing to it holding the trans, but we are short on options. It's also very busy in here, so I'm not really sure where I would put them out. So I think what we're going to start with is I have a piece of 1x2 rectangle tubing I'm going to bring across right behind the factory mount. I'm going to weld a plate to that comes forward and hits these 2 bolt holes so we can bolt the trans back in right there. And then I'm going to bring that bar over and figure out how the heck we're going to attach it to this frame. Don't know how we're going to do it, but I think what I'm going to do is start by getting the rectangular tubing cut to size roughly so it comes like to here, maybe to the outside of the frame just to make sure I have enough. And then I will cut this plate, weld this plate on, and get it all kind of bolted up here. And then we can start figuring out how we're going to attach the frame. So I will be right back with that cut. Cut the bar to length. It's all under there. I was going to cut a piece of like angle steel or like 1/4 inch flat plate and go right across the top and hit the trans mount. But then I realized I had the original trans mount from the parts truck in the bed of the parts truck. So I went, got that out, and I just sectioned the plate, the mount plate itself, out of that because it's really strong and has this support bracket under it, and it's all welded and it's nice. So I just tacked it to my bar, and there is that. It's just hanging there for now. I'm going to have to take it out and weld it, and I'm going to have to build some brackets off the side. I want those brackets to be triangulated so they come up and over, because that thing's got the mount hanging off the front, so there's going to be like a rotational moment here. So I want a bolt like back here so I can counter that. So I'm going to do something along these lines. My little cardboard bracket, it's going to be just like that. It's going to weld right onto the end of that bar, come up. I'll put 2 half-13 bolts right through the frame, and we will be good to go. So I got to cut one of these for this side, one for the other side. But first, I'm going to take this thing out, fully weld that thing up so it's all good to go, and then we will cut out our steel. We will put this all together, drill a couple holes, and that will be the end of that. So I'll be right back in 2 seconds with all of that done. And that is that. All done, looks good, all welded up all the way. Definitely pretty strong, and I already test fit it before I finished welding it. Bolts in nice. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw this under, get the jacks out of there, get this thing finally sitting on mounts, and show you guys that. All right, guys, we're all set. Trans mount is in, jacks are gone. Motor and trans are officially mounted in the frame. I'm particularly happy with this. It came out really, really nice. The only problem is the front drive shaft output from the transfer case does hit a little bit right there, but I'll just notch this thing out and plate it in. It'll be perfect. I got to take it out to paint it anyway eventually. That's going to be a not today project. I'm just happy it's now in there, so I can now roll this thing in and out of the garage and not worry about it. So That's going to be about it for today's episode. I got a lot coming though. We have a lot more to do. I know the videos have been few and far between, but I'm going to try to get back on a regular schedule. So until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on Ran When Parked.